to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions on the comment box allotted during the session and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning, ka-Vibal? And now, to proceed with our webinar this morning, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker today. He is a consultant and evaluator for K-12 Philippine Basic Education. He is the curriculum and academic consultant of Sisters of Mary. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Brother Roderick M. Aguirre.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, viewers. A blessed Monday to everyone. Although here in Cavite, the skies are starting to darken, probably because there's an impending rain that will pour down any time of the day. But nonetheless, it's a fine day for us to continue learning. And for this week and next week's session will be on helping the teachers out there, like myself, give tips on how to prepare yourselves for the opening of classes, especially on my topic today, which is on making a good and positive impressions to your students on the first day and the whole first week of the classes in the school year 2020 and 2021. I would like to give a shout out to Miss Rosalie Chavez Fauni, anak-anakan ko po from PNU. So hi, I think she's on online too, viewing this session. And to those who have been with us for the past few webinars, starting since March until today, welcome to all of you. Today, I'll just be giving you some practical tips and to understand how we can impress on our students and thereby facilitate a positive vibe to our students, especially on continuing on and starting an online or a blended distance education for the school year 2020 and 2021. So let me share to you my PowerPoint. There you go. And my title of my topic for this session, this morning session, is setting positive impressions on the first day and week of classes. This is not, it sounds easy, but this is one of the many difficult tasks that all teachers are faced with. But I believe that those teachers who have already got somehow a certain grasp on how to establish a good impression among their students, especially during the first day and first week. I think they know what I'm gonna say, but for those who are still, especially for the fresh graduates, probably a graduate for a year or two, I would like to impress on you some of the tips that I can provide you that I have been doing in the past years of my career. And I believe these have been things that have helped me go through with my career as a speaker, and especially on my case where it's almost always a first time impression on my participants and the participants of the training, and it has not always been a smooth sailing on my part. There will always be other people who would have a negative impression, and what do we do with that, and how do we help ourselves overcome such occasions where some people have a negative impression on us. Also, like, how do we overcome and do something about students' negative impression of us? And that's what we're going to also understand today, but I only given an hour and a half or so to deliver my tasks. So I will proceed with my presentation using this outline just to have a more clear path of how we're going to discuss some of the issues and some of the subtopics within my appointed and assigned topic. So introduction, again, as I've mentioned, would be identifying certain myths about first impressions, and we're going to answer and shed light as to how we can explain and bust this common myths about first impressions. And then we proceed to our discussion, answering certain questions that I've formulated for us to answer. And I added some takeaways after each answer of each, after the answers to each questions. So initially I had about 5 questions, but since of the time allotted for me to present this topic, I only shortened them into just 3 topics, focusing more on how teachers can impress on students positively, and what are the things that we can do and prepare for that occasion, especially the first day and first week of classes. So the questions are, what is an impression and how do we form one? So we would need to understand the nature of first impressions and how individuals form impressions, and probably by that we will have an idea how we can improve ours. And then number 2 would be, what is a positive impression? So what are the things that our students see in a good teacher, and via this we could probably have an idea how we present ourselves to our students, especially during the first day of classes that would be online, and be able to approximate all of these things that our students are thinking uh, of of a good teacher. And then the last question we're going to answer would be, what are the things to consider in order to establish positive impression to our students on the first day and week of class? I will be suggesting to you just about 4 things that I've been doing for the past years, and which I believe were effective. I did not include those things that are still I'm still testing, and have not resulted a really good and consistent positive impression from my participants and my students. And then afterwards, we'll have an open forum, probably practical questions on things you think you've been doing, and probably I have overstepped on some of the things you've been doing, and we could probably clarify on that. So if you have questions and clarifications along the way during my discussion, please do not hesitate to key in your comments and clarifications on the comments box below. And then I will provide with, a summary of the things that we have discussed. And then I'll provide certain challenges for us teachers to think over, so that we will, have something to think about, and use that as a way of, making us, on edge, and do something about the preparation for the opening of classes. So let's begin with our introduction, which is on identifying myths about first impressions. I only identified 4 common, although there are a lot of myths about first impressions, but I just identified 4 that I thought are most common here in the Philippines and most common to interactions between teachers and students. Although there are a lot of myths about first impressions, but in different social contexts. But I will just be focusing on myths on the teaching and learning scenario. So first impression would be, you get first myth about first impressions would be, you get a second chance to make a first impression. No, you don't. First impressions, that's why it's called first impression, is always the first impression. But we can do something. It's a myth. Okay, it's a myth. Because you don't get a second chance of imposing a good, positive first impression among your students. Okay, so there's always a first, but there's always what we call as an ongoing good impression among our students, and what we call also as an end impression. So good thing about the teacher and student scenario is that it's a journey. Okay, it's a journey that teachers can do something about it. Just say the first impression was not so good, although it should always be good, and as much as possible positive, and not so not stressful to both students and teachers. But my point here is that just in case the teachers were not able to prepare for making a good impression among students on the first day, there are still situations and there are still chances for them to overcome and address this impressions, but it will be a little bit difficult because it's difficult to change the first impression and do something about it along the way. And what's really important is that we end the school year with a bang and make our students realize that their first impression was totally wrong about us, and then we totally redeem ourselves. Okay, I'm not saying that we need to prove ourselves to our students. It's just that we need to take care of their impressions first, because if we do not entice them and we do not inspire them to take part in the teaching and learning process, then education and learning will not take place. Remember, the teaching and learning process is a two-way process. It's like a tango. It takes two to tango. So you need to inspire students to motivate them, and at the same time, that external motivation would provide a certain way to internally motivate our students to partake in the teaching and learning process, especially in the upcoming school year 2020 and 2021, where there's no face-to-face interaction among our students, and the distance of the physical connection between the students and the teachers will be absent. So it is really important for us to have a good impression on the first day of classes, especially on the online. And then now the second myth that I have identified, which I believe I have gone through and experienced it, would be first impressions last and are difficult to change or break. It is not totally true. It is partially true. That's why it's called the myth, because a lot of teachers and a lot of individuals hang on to the idea that pag yan ang tingin nila sa akin, wala na akong makagawa. So give up now. No. As I mentioned in some of my explanations in the myth one, the first impressions last, and it's really difficult to change or break, but we can do something about it, especially in situations where it's a journey for us to be with our students. It may be true on occasions where you only meet people the first time and there will be no other chances for you to meet these people, like in concerts or like people that you have acquaintances on certain occasions, but you do not make them friends. But if you say you have chosen these people, the people that you have met the first time, and you believe there's a chance for you to make them part of your circle of friends, then you can do something about changing it in the course of time. So first impressions are really difficult to change or break, but it can be changed and can be overcome with through the course of getting to know each other. The third myth that I have identified that is prevalent here in the Philippines would be, I don't have any unconscious bias. A lot of people think that when they make this is a myth, because a lot of Filipinos think that then when they make a negative impression of people, they believe that it's because of that person, not because of one's belief. Remember, our impressions of other people reflect our belief system and our attitude towards other people and towards ourselves. So we believe in understanding how we make impressions of other people, it's also understanding and a mirror as to who we are and how we think. So part of our impression of other people is our impression of ourselves. So this is a myth. It's not unconscious bias. Okay, I don't have unconscious. It's always, we always have conscious. We always have that bias in our mind. And whether we like it or not, whether we are aware of it or not, well, that's even difficult if we're not aware that we have a lot of biases. This perception, this belief system, our personal belief system, our personal culture, a huge impact on how we make impressions of other people. So this is a myth, right? So we should be aware that we have, unconscious and conscious biases towards, things and other people. We're going to discuss this along the way. The fourth and final myth would be, since impression making is mostly unconsciously done, there's nothing I can do about it. Meaning, since I have no control over the impressions I make on other people, then I can't do anything about it. That's wrong. We are masters of our own thoughts. We are masters of our own perceptions. Therefore, we are capable of controlling our impressions of other people or withholding impression of other people. but it takes a lot of practice, a lot of experience for people to be able to practice our own thoughts and our perceptions of other people, thereby, you know, not giving so much or jumping so much on providing negative impressions on other people. But it takes a lot of practice. So we cannot expect our students to automatically have a wide variety of schema or background knowledge or perception that would provide them with alternatives, how to see their teachers, their new teachers in this coming school year, because they are still in the process of experience lots of things. Unlike for individuals who have already been through life, like my case, professional teachers have been through a lot of experience would have, you know, better ways of coping with giving first impressions. All right, so it also based on our perceptions and our experience in life. Therefore, this is a myth, because it's not that we cannot do anything about it. We can do something about it, because as I've said, we are masters of our own thoughts. We can control what happens inside our brain. We are not morons and imbeciles who just, you know, create impressions of other people without us knowing it. And then we're gonna discuss that and understand it as we answer the questions starting now. Okay, so those were the 4 minutes. Let us begin our discussion by answering the first question. What is an impression? And it's already 10:22 and I've eaten a lot of time and just on the introduction part, but nonetheless, I'm enjoying because I love this topic. And anyway, so the first question in our discussion would be, what is an impression and how do we form one? So let us understand the psyche that is involved in making impressions, and what are the factors and the influences that, you know, contribute to how we make an impression of other people, not just people though, but also events, but also objects. Okay, so let us have a little bit of simulation, a little bit of questions though. Let's say you are walking in the street, and then all of a sudden a guy approaches you, and this guy is full of tattoos. All right, what will be your reaction? Say, this guy has full of tattoos on his body, but he's a good looking guy. What would be your perception, or what would be your first impression of that guy? Some people would say, oh, that's cool, that's cute, right? What if that person of full of tattoos becomes, instead of being handsome, is now, you know, not handsome, you know, as for your standards, not handsome? What will you do? Ang isipin po ninyo ay, hala, masamang tao ito. Tatakbo ka at sabi mo, ay, kalalabas lang to ng selda o ng Mandaluyong. What's it, Mandaluyong? Ng Bilibid, there you go, ng Bilibid. So tatakbo ka. So one of the factors that contribute to our first impression would be our perception of beauty and physical attributes. All right. And our perception of beauty and our perception of good physical attributes will be based on how we were raised by our parents, by our society, and definitely by the television. And a lot of what we see on the tri-media, especially that right now on television and commercials, it's airing out a lot of subliminal messages that a person who is beautiful and good should be white, with long hair, not curly hair. Pag curly hair, masama na agad ng ugali. Patay naman po kami mga kulot-kulot ng buhok. The point there is that the way we perceive people would be physical, based on their physical attributes, are not based on personal belief system, but because it's based on how he was raised and how he was formed, okay, in the society with its culture, and indirectly as well through the commercials and the movies that we watch. All right? So, yan po. Yung common po yung may mga tattoo. Okay? Second exhibit, babae na pawisan. Pawisan yan. Babae na pawis. Tumatakbo. Kunwari tumatakbo kayo sa UP Sunken Garden. Tapos nakakita kayo nakasalubong yung babae na talagang pawis na pawis. Gawin natin siya maganda. Anong tawag nyo? Wow! Hot! Diba? Kasi maganda. Paano kung pumangit ito? What will be your impression of a woman's running and sweating so much? Meron ba naman yan? Di man lang magdamit ng maayos. So, ang sama. So, our positive or negative impression of other people and how we react to this will be basically how we perceive our biases and prejudices about physical attributes of who is beautiful and who is not. And I think we need to be aware of that. And as adults like us, one way or the other, at least we know now that, looks could be deceiving. But for students, a lot of our students have not yet been exposed to a lot of people, to a lot of cultures that would, allow them to come up with alternatives of impressions of people, especially in physical attributes. But these students have been so engrossly, indirectly educated by the standards of beauty, by the commercials shown on television, by movies, by the parents, and by society itself. So we need to be, as teachers, we need at least somehow to approximate how our students see beauty. So mag-ayos din tayo kahit paano. All right? So another scenario is, nasa jeep ka, okay? Nasa jeep ka o nasa bus na lang, tapos meron nakatingin sa'yo, nakatitig sa'yo. Paano kunwari ito ay gwapo? Anong tingin mo? Anong iisipin mo? Anong impression mo sa tingin na tumitingin sa'yo na isang gwapo? Anong isipin mo? Hala, may crush sa akin. Yun ang isipin ng mga babae. O kaya, babae na maganda nakatingin sa'yo. O yan, may crush sa akin. Siguro ang gwapo-gwapo ko. That will be your impression perhaps, and your impression of that person, and then your impression of yourself. Again, remember, when you make impressions of other people, it should be seen on a two-way process. You're not only looking at the person dahil hindi lang, wala pang ginagawa yung tao, masama na agad ang tingin mo. Ibig sabihin, dalawa po yun. Yung nakukuha mong impormasyon sa tao at saka yung tingin, anong meron sa utak mo. So it's a two-way process. Impressions involve two factors interacting together. Information from the person or object we're looking at or we're impressing on, and of course, our value system and our belief system. All right? Paano kunwari pumangit ang nakatingin sa'yo? Nakatingin sa'yo pangit. Di isipin ng mga babae, yan, manyak yan. Isipin naman ng mga kalalakihan pag maganda, ano ba naman to? Pala mo to babae to, wala makita na iba. All right? Kala niya makahagos ako. So our reactions, how we impress, how we give impression to other people, whether it's positive or negative, would totally be we're totally about 80% dependent on our belief system and our perceptions. Okay, how we form our perceptions, and then we're going to discuss the sources of perceptions. On that note, let us now know the sources of perceptions and our impressions. All right, let us know that our brain is capable of making. Okay, our brain is an accumulation of many things involved to form our perception and our belief system. One of which would be our experiences. Our experiences since childhood up to adulthood or up to now. These experiences, whether good or bad, contribute to our perceptions of our surroundings, perceptions, our belief system of people and of events, of all the things that we have experienced. Ang bata daw, ang tao, na takot sa mga tao na mga ganito, nagkaroon ng experience yan, either vicariously or direct experience. Ang tao na galit, natakot sa aso, okay, hindi lang impression sa tao, pati rin sa mga hayop. Nakakita pala ng aso, takot na agad. Dahil baka nakagat yan nung bata siya. Okay? Yung mga ganun mga sitwasyon. So again, let us not be too hasty about ang sama naman ng isip ng taong to. May pinanggagalingan din yung tao. So what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to impress on you people here is that since impressions is a two-way process, so ano yan eh, it's a bias on both sides. Yung tao na nagalit dahil masama ang tingin sa kanya, ay galit siya sa tao na nagawa ng negative impression, ay may bias din siya using his own perception. So what I'm trying to say here is that we try to be understanding of each other's perceptions and our impressions. Kahit pagkamali man o hindi, may pinanggalingan at may source ng impression na yun. Now, let us not be angry on the impression. Let's not focus on the impression, but let's focus on the source of the negative impression, and that's what we attack. We do something about it. That's why psychologists on that. What's the source? What was the trigger that made that person come up with a path of a negative impression or positive impression? So as teachers, we need to know na siguro ito ang isip niya na ang mga bata pag ma-teacher ang tingin nila agad ay nakakatakot. O pag-aralin pa po ng teacher ay mga terror agad. Bakit ganun ang impression ng mga estudyante? It's because they experienced that in the previous year or probably in the previous school, in the previous grade levels or in the previous schools that they were with. At baka ganun ang kanilang experience sa mga teachers and the students came up with a generalization that all araling palipunan teachers are terrors or lahat ng math teachers are boring. Those are impressions because of their experience, previous experiences with those teachers. Another one would be culture and society. How society views certain people. Okay, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, sa Pilipinas, wala namang tayong kultura. May kultura tayo siguro sa Maynila, mostly when we have people who have tattoos, ang kultura ng ibang tao, dahil sa Manila, ang tingin nila sana may mga tattoos ay galing sa masasamang tao dahil sila ay galing sa bilibid or sila po ay na-jail. But if you go in the mountain provinces, part of their traditions and their culture would be to do tattooing. It's part of their, acceptance to a certain level of the tribe. You become now more of a warrior or perhaps a level on stature in society. So depende po yan kung ano ang pagtanggap sa isang standard of beauty or standard of practice in a particular culture, not just in the Philippines. So hindi natin pwedeng i-generalize. Now, we need to teach our students to contextualize such impressions. And basically, as teachers, we should know who our students are, because by knowing who our students are, one way or the other, we're able to approximate how we will impress ourselves on them. So, ang kagandahan kasi ng knowing the profile of our students is you get to have an idea how to adjust to them. Kasi on the first day of classes, on the first week of study, this is what we call as the adjustment stage, all right? And hindi lang po ang bata mag-a-adjust dapat. Okay, as I've said, it's always a two process. The teaching and learning process is a two-way process. It takes two to tango. So hindi pwedeng bahala mga estudyante ko dahil ako ang teacher, dapat hindi ako nag-adjust, sila mag-a-adjust sa akin. No, you are supposed. One of the principles of teaching is knowing where your students are coming from and teaching them from where they are. So by knowing where they come from, by knowing their culture, by knowing their profile, is also knowing their individual culture, and thereby helping us to have basis how we can adjust to these individual differences. Kaya nga po, marami na pong lumalabas ngayon na prinsipyo at saka mga designs on teaching and learning, which is more of differentiated approach. Okay? Medyo mahirap po, but then again, that's how we can help our students adjust to the new learning situation, which is, distance education. Hindi lang ikaw nag-a-adjust, teacher. Pati po ang mga estudyante ninyo. Hindi lang po mga estudyante natin, pati mga magulang. Hindi lang po mga magulang. Lahat po tayo. So hindi pwedeng sabihin na hindi tayo mag-adjust. Ang mga bata mag-adjust should be together. Next would be learning. One of the many sources of our, impressions of other people, of other things would be our education. Okay, how we were taught by our teachers, and so teachers and the people in our school contribute to our perceptions, our prejudices and biases, our knowledge, our skills, and our value system, which will be also one of the bases for our impression. So I could say, malalaman po natin na bakit ganito ang estudyante dahil graduates ng school. It's nice to know sometimes that a lot we can equate good people, people who are understanding because they graduated from this certain school. Or ay, mga social yan, hindi na ikipag-usap kung sino-sino kasi graduate yan school na yan. These are things that we have as an impression of type of individuals because one way or the other, that certain type of school or education has a certain stigma or stereotypes that would, somehow precipitate such stereotypes to their students. And via that, they become products of such type of learning. Okay, so learning is one of the sources of our perceptions and our impressions or belief system. Another one would be conditioning. One of the prevailing sources right now for the perceptions of our students and on making impressions of other people and things and situations they're faced with would be conditioning, especially from television. And that's why a lot of research from Stanford University and Columbia University show that a lot of students have, negative impressions of a lot of things because commercials in televisions have projected on subliminally to our students and viewers superficial definitions of concepts, superficial treatment of concepts, like the idea of beauty that's been standardized and the concept of goodness, the concept of faith, the concept of love have been commercialized to the point that our students have this superficial understanding of all these concepts. And thereby, if they are faced with such situation, then they'll be using this unconscious, unconscious and subconscious basis of giving impressions on other people. And that's why one of the many studies, I think Dr. Laurel came up with would be the commercials on the diminishing ideas of society on women. So maganda po tingnan natin, baka naman ang ating commercial ay hindi gender sensitive. So titingnan po natin yun. That's why I believe that a lot of parents should give a certain time for their kids and their children to just watch television and should be supervised. Kasi nga, ang daming subliminal messages. Another one be observation. Some of our biases and prejudices and our perceptions of people and things would be based on how we observe others react to other people. Halimbawa, ganito kasing reaction ko kasi yung classmate ko, ganun din ang kanyang reaction kasi sabi ng classmate ko . So a lot of some of the impressions of our students to a certain teacher will be based on their observation of the perception of other students. Halimbawa, yung ating mga higher grade levels, narinig nila sa mga higher grades na, mag-ingat kayo kay teacher na ganito kasi ganito yan. So one or the other na nabago na or wala greatly to the success, effectiveness, and efficiency of the teaching and learning process. So a person starts to form impressions of a person after seeing their face for less than 1/10 of a second. That's how fast individuals, students, and teachers, all individuals all individuals in general make impressions of a certain thing, situation, or a certain individual. In that time, we decide either consciously or unconsciously whether or not the person is attractive, trustworthy, competent, extroverted, or dominant. Ganun kabilis ang paggawa ng impression. That's why it is very important for us teachers to, on the first live online orientation with our students and even parents, we need to project a certain behavior and attitude that would cultivate positive impressions from our viewers, especially from our parents and our students, so that we inspire them to be collaborators of this new thing called online learning and distance modular education. We need them to be part, contributing partners in this journey. Okay. So these are our takeaways for the question number one. What is an impression and how do we make one? First takeaway is first impressions are made very fast. Too fast to be accurate. Yun lang. Dahil nga sobrang bilis, konti ang data, and mostly the basis would be your personal experiences, your culture, not necessarily taking into consideration the other person, because we cannot know the whole person in just a second or just an hour or just a day. It's a journey, and we need to impress on our students that yes, first impression is important, but it is a journey that we get. The getting to know each other is a journey. In fact, it doesn't stop. We get to be friends with our students even after even after the school year, or even after that they already have their own families. It's still a journey. Okay, so first impressions are made very fast, too fast to be very accurate. Hence, we need to be careful about how we project ourselves to other people. So, ang tawag ko po dito ay dahan-dahan lang. Hinay-hinay in short. All right, hinay-hinay muna. Another takeaway would be impressions are stereotypes that humans associate with certain physical characteristics, and these stereotypes can greatly affect first impression, whether we like it or not. People a certain other people based on the physical attributes, and therefore, if that is one of the takeaways for the question, for the answer to the question number one, then we need to project ourselves to our students pleasing. Hindi naman kailangan maganda tayo tsaka gwapo tayo. Pleasing lang daw po. Basis for pleasing would be kita daw ng mga bata ang buong mukha, tapos maayos ang buhok. Sorry po, kahit anong suklay ng buhok ko, talaga may tumitikwas dahil talagang kulot ang buhok ko. So siguro maintindihan naman ng mga bata na just because kulot po ako, hindi ibig sabihin masama ugali. Kasi di ba meron tayong sinasabi na pagkulot salot. Anyway, so these are stereotypes. And then we could probably change our students' perception of us on certain stereotypes, physical stereotypes, as the years pass by, or the days, not years, but days pass by and weeks pass by. But we need to be aware that one of the basis for our students' impression of us as teachers would be our physical attributes. Kaya especially for online, importante lang naman na maganda, maayos ang ating pangtaas, pangtaas. Bahala na kayo sa pambaba, di naman na makikita ng mga bata yun. So, makeup din. Ako, I'm sorry, to be honest, on my first sets of webinars, talagang walang ka-kuntor-kuntor. So may medyo nag-ano pa ako, nagpupulbo, nag-aayos ng konti. So I'm not really keen on physical looks, but as I review the recorded webinars, I get to judge myself. I said, I could have been better. I know that I have a lot of information to share, but I need still to look to project physically, a positive vibe to my viewers. So kailangan po natin din as teachers to do that. Third takeaway. When it comes to faces and first impressions, it's important to recognize that faces are very complex. So we need to understand. So alam po natin na hindi natin alam kung maganda tayo or gwapo tayo sa paningin ng mga estudyante natin. But there's one good research that shows that when people smile, no matter how people think you are ugly or not handsome, but when we smile, our face lights up and we become pleasant looking to our viewers and to our students. So, magkaiba po yung nakaganito lang. Pero pag nag-smile na tayo, kahit ano pa ang tingin ng bata sa atin na pangit, pag nag-smile na it lightens up our face. So, importante po tayo na, yes, we have different faces, we have different looks. But one thing that is common for all of us is smile. Smiling makes our countenance more pleasing. All right? So, importante yun. Smile po tayo. Okay? Always smile. Huwag na ako no. So, those are our takeaways for question number 1. Let's now proceed to question number 2. What is good and positive impression? Okay, ano ba yun? Paano natin malalaman ang good and positive impressions ng mga estudyante sa isang teacher? Alright? So, let us understand first how one make an impression. Okay, so an individual make impression of others because of their personal perception. And perception, as we have discussed a while ago, would be the combination of the belief system of an individual based on one's experiences, society and culture, learning, observation of other people as well, and of course conditioning based on televisions and all, how they were impressed on certain ideas and so on and so forth. So these are the perceptions, sources of our perceptions. Say our impression of other people reflects our schema, all right? The type of schema that we have. Say, if we base our impression of other people based on the characters or objects of people, like we like it because ganyan ang itsura, gusto kong ganyang itsura, hindi ko yan gusto kasi hindi ko yan gustong itsura. That reflects our object schema or person schema. Ibig sabihin, yan po ang paniniwala natin sa mga bagay-bagay, yan ang paniniwala natin sa kung ano ang mabuting tao at masamang tao. Alright? So, kung ano ang impresyon ng isang tao sa isang tao o bagay, reflection po yan ng paano tayo mag-isip. Nakuha po natin. So let us be careful on giving impressions on other people because hindi lang natin sinasaktan ng ibang tao. Ito po ay reflection din kung kanong klaseng tao tayo. Kung negative ang tingin natin sa tao na yun, it also bespeaks of our negative perceptions. Okay? Our also belief system or our schema. Pero yung tao daw nagsasabi na, I don't know if I like you or not. Ako po kasi pala yung sinasabi, I cannot give a comment on a person that I only met the first time because siguro maganda siya. But then again, I have different standards of beauty. So I cannot say that. Sa mabuti pa siyang tao, I cannot say kung mabuti siya. I have not been with that person long time enough for me to give a good judgment. I am not the right person to say if the person is right. Look for someone na matagal niyang kasama, siya makakapagsabi. Alright? So ako lang, pero dati madali ako mag-judge ng tao. But because at my age, perhaps dumami na po ang aking schema about lots of people and lots of objects because of my experiences with the environment. So medyo umaayos ng aking impression of other people. Kahit masama ang impression ng tao sa akin, hindi ko tinitake negatively dahil I try to understand them. Dahil baka yun din ang tingin niya sa sarili niya or kulang pa ang kanyang experiences with other people at environment. Kaya nga po, importante po na we have a lot of simulations for our students in school and be able to and allow them to interact with various types of people so that somehow, whether we like it or not, or whether they like it or not, their person schema, their object schema is modified and improved. Okay? Another perspective, context of situation. Halimbawa, impression natin sa isang sitwasyon, ano ba naman tong lugar? Ano ba naman to? Boring naman. So we have a lot of impressions on situations like, is it boring or is it fun? It's because it reflects also our social schema and event schema. Ibig sabihin, experience na natin na ganon. Okay? The point is, hindi pa nga nagsisimula ang activity, meron na agad tayong bias. Okay? May prejudice na tayo. Well, siguro dahil nga yun lang ang ating schema. Alright? Next, personal traits. Whether mabuti ba, ang tingin mo ba mabuting tao yun o masamang tao? It reflects also our self-schema. Ano bang tingin natin? Kasi para sa iyo, ang mabuti ay ganito. Kung gifts, so the way you project to other people, ganun din, magbibigay ka ng maraming gifts. So, ang tao na nagbibigay sa iyo ng maraming gifts, dahil ganun ka, yun din ang mabuti. Pero hindi ganun lahat ng tao. Alright? So, that's the problem is. The limited our self-schema, how we project ourselves of what's good and what's bad, we project it on other people. Well, probably because we still lack understanding of many personal traits of other people, of coming from different cultures and different society. Halimbawa lang po, in China, in the Chinese culture, para pakita mo po ang appreciation mo sa kanilang niluto ay dapat maingay ka sa pagkain. But in the Western culture, the American culture, pag maingay kang kumakain is disrespectful. So that's the kind of self-respect and culture and society that we are brought up with would somehow make us see other people whether disrespectful pa siya, mabuti ba siya, dahil yun ang kanyang schema natin. But if we are immersed with different cultures, different people with different, coming from different societies with different cultures, then we become multicultural, we become more varied in our perspectives of understanding other people. So we become more understanding, not tolerant, but understanding of different personal traits of other people. We also have behavior. Gusto mo ba ang kanyang ugali o hindi, ang kanyang galaw o hindi? May mga tao na kumamot lang yung isang tao, iritang-irita na siya. O kaya gumanon lang, nagganon lang, iritang-irita na siya. It's because it reflects our role schema. Hindi dapat ganyan ang babae. Ang babae dapat ganyan. Again, it reflects our belief system. Ang pagkairita o ang ating pagtanggap sa ibang tao, sa mga bagay-bagay, sa events, are not because the events themselves are as such. It also reflects how varied or how limited our perception or our knowledge of things and of people and of the situation. Kuha po natin. Ngayon, kung ang mga estudyante po natin ay ganun impression natin at sinabi natin na ang babaw ng inyong impression naman sa akin, it's because nga, we need to understand as teachers, bata pa sila, limited pa ang kanilang schema. Therefore, sino ba dapat ang mas understanding? Yung marami na bang schema o yung konting schema? Sabi nga natin, yung mas maraming alam, yun dapat ang mas nakakaintindi. Yung konting alam, sila dapat ang iniintindi. At tinutulungan na makalabas at magkaroon ng maraming exposures. So we now understand how we make impressions and the sources of which. So be careful in making impressions, on giving impressions on other people and objects and situations, because whether you like it or not, it reflects your belief system, your culture, and your perception. Okay? Kung wala ka pa naman basis pala, don't make any impression at all. Okay? So a first impression then occurs in a situation when a person first meets another person and an instant mental image and impression of that person is formed based on a wide range of characteristics that, such as age, race, culture, language, gender, physical appearance, accent, to name a few. Minsan, even the language accent or the accent of a person of using a language, pa-impression tayo. Ang tingin natin, hindi maganda kanyang accent. Ako hindi to magaling na tao. Hindi naman, it cannot be equated that the person has a good accent, has a good, is fluent in saying English, at hindi makapag-English pero magaling naman sa Filipino or other language. Doesn't mean that the person is bad or not a good person or not a competent person. I think that's just only speaks of how limited we see or our definition of what a good person is or what a competent person is. Minsan, a lot of teachers, iba ang tingin sa principal natin na hindi magaling mag-English. Huwag naman ganon. It cannot be equated as such. Ang titingnan po natin dahil nga principal, competence po, skills ang tingnan natin, huwag naman yung kanilang English. Right? Unless English major nga naman siya. Alright? So, students' perception. So ito na po ang mga students' perception of a good teacher. So we can probably approximate how we present ourselves to our students on this research from Columbia University. They did a survey to a lot of students from elementary to college on how they see or perceive a good teacher. Now, for students, they believe that a teacher is a good teacher based on their first impression would be one, good communication skills. I'm not saying good English communication skills. I'm saying good communication skills. It tells our students that our teacher are competent, our teacher or we are good if we're able to communicate, eloquently our ideas and our thoughts and our rules and regulations and our expectations from our students. And if we are clear and we are easily understood by our students, then therefore for the eyes in the eyes of our students and an understanding of our students and the perception of our students, we are a good teacher. Claro, yun lang po. Now, being clear about our ideas and our thoughts could be in Filipino and could be in English. But then again, we have to be truthful to our MOTL, medium of teaching and learning. If we if we request and require our students to speak and use the MOTL or medium of teaching and learning, let's say English for science, English for mathematics, then it is also fitting that whatever we require from our students, we must be able to fulfill as well. All right. Second would be good listening skills. A lot of students will that's the second most checked by the students during the survey of a good teacher would be they note that a teacher is good when they listen to the students, that the teacher do not interrupt a student when a student is saying something. The teacher tries and patiently listens to the students, or the teacher tries to ask the comments from the students. All right? So importante po na hindi lang po tayo ang nagbibigay ng ating mga expectations from our students. We also allow our students to voice out their expectations from the class, from the student, and from the subject itself. All right? So that is a good way. So always think of a two-way process. Next would be friendly, understanding attitude. I'm not saying establishing friendship. There's a huge difference between being friendly and being friends. A lot of my students before, alam kong sinasabi sa kanila, be friendly, be nice, be understanding, be patient. Ano ba ang characteristics ng being friendly? You are patient, you are understanding, you have good listening skills, and then you're, basically respectful. Now, being friends is, more of sharing secrets. It's a huge, it's a journey between two persons or two or more persons. The point here is that you are not supposed to be friends with your students, but you are required and you're expected to be friendly and understanding to your students. With that, ang sabi ng mga bata, hindi naman kailangan kaibiganin kami o maging kaibigan namin si teacher, basta friendly lang po naman siya sa amin. Hindi yung wala na kaming ginawang tama, ang nakikita lang ay puro mali. Okay? Tama nga naman. Next would be patient and ethical. Do never cross the minsan kasi that was one when I was a young professor. One of my many mistakes at palaging sinasabi sa akin noon ng aking mga mentors, Dr. Tatlong Hari, Dr. Gutierrez, ang sinasabi sa akin, I'm too familiar when I speak to other people and to some of my students, parang I'm too familiar, na parang nangyari na I cross the line of being friendly to being friends. Na minsan, doon ko na nang-realize na mahirap nga naman pag ang tingin ng mga bata sa teacher ay friends, mahirap na disiplinahin sila. So it is very nice for us to be within the bounds of the ethical precepts of a professional teacher. So balik po tayo sa Magna Carta or balik po tayo sa PPST, the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers. Nandun po ang mga ethical standards for teachers. But basically, we need to be patient, all right? And next, we have prepared and organized. A lot of our students, a lot of the respondents of the survey said that they can see that the teacher is competent and confident if the teacher is prepared and organized. If they see that the teacher is, is going around like scattered brains and all, looking for things, they see that the teacher is not prepared, therefore he is not a competent teacher and may not necessarily be. They have an impression that the teacher is not knowledgeable of the subject matter. And if that's the case, the students would think that will not trust their learning in the teacher or to the teacher. So dapat prepared po tayo. Hindi sinabi na expert teacher, prepared and organized. Kasi pag ang teacher daw ay prepared and organized, well, ang tingin nila si teacher ay expert. Another one would be discipline and respectful. Discipline in a such a way that the teacher does not ignore misbehavior. The teacher tries to establish the rules and regulations of the teaching and learning conditions. It is very important for teachers to think of ano nga ba ang rules and regulations ko sa distance education? Ano nga ba mga ano ba dapat ang mga classroom rules? Eh, dati may classroom kami, eh, ngayon wala na kaming classroom. So what are my rules and regulations for the teaching and learning process? So you want to think about that, but I think we have another topic on that, a checklist checklist on how we can establish certain rules, routines for our students, and that will be another topic. I did not include that here. So it's very important that whatever we tell our students, the rules and regulations, definitely the teacher should be there. Ideally, pag sinabi po natin na ang teacher ay dapat should be online, on online teaching should be 9 o'clock, si teacher dapat naghihintay na 15 to 30 minutes, naghihintay na mag-accept sa mga estudyante. Hindi yung si teacher pa ang late sa online. And it's the same scenario on a face-to-face interaction with our students. Ang mga bata din, nawawala rin ng respeto sa mga teacher na palaging late sa klase. So it's the same situation that will happen. They will disrespect the teacher, will not feel respectful of teachers who are late doing online teaching as well. All right, so these are the 6 common perceptions of our students of a good teacher, and we may want to exemplify on the first day and the first week of classes. So these are our takeaways for question number 2 before we proceed to the last question. So teachers should make a lot of effort to make a good and positive first impressions continuously. It does not stop. So ibig sabihin, ang ganda nga ng first impression sa'yo, pero habang tumatagal, bumabagsak ang impression, dapat paakyat nga yun eh. If not paakyat, siguro consistent. You want to be consistent all throughout the school year or it improves on. So simple lang muna habang nag-improve. Pero hindi maganda ang impression na good, ang galing-galing talaga ng teacher namin sa simula pa lang. Pero habang tumatagal, pumabagsak na. Alright, so it says there, first impressions continuously. So we have to strive every day, every week, every month to maintain that impression or to improve on that impression. So that's our takeaway. And our second takeaway and last takeaway for the second question would be, teachers should consider students' perception of who a good teacher is as basis for making first impressions on them. So we may want to approximate the way we present ourselves to our students would be the 6 results of the research done by Columbia University on how students view a good teacher. So baka yun po ang titingnan natin. Pag na-approximate natin yung 6 na yun, then we definitely would have, we would yield good impressions and positive impressions from our students. Now we proceed to our last question for our discussion, and time check, it's already 11 o'clock. So time flies so fast. Okay, what are the things to consider in order to establish positive impression to our students on the first day and week of classes? Considering, of course, our answer for question number 1 and question number 2, let us now pragmatically, let me now pragmatically present you the things I've been doing in my career, especially there are a lot of things that I've been doing, but I have identified 4 to be consistently yielding positive impressions from my students and the participants of trainings, face-to-face trainings that I have been with for the past years. Okay, just an information. Scientists came up with the results of their thorough research on first impressions, found that first impressions are generally influenced most by nonverbal communication and body language. Research showed that whether you do something or you don't do something, or you say something or you don't say something, may impression pa rin ang tao sa'yo. Halimbawa, sa isang gathering, may ginawa ka, nakatahimik ka lang kasi takot ka na baka magkaroon ng negative impression. So para walang negative impression sa iyo, you just remain silent. Tapos ang tingin ng tao, suplado naman noon. Whether you do something, You don't do something, you say something, you don't say something, you act appropriately, or you don't act at all. You just stay calm, you just stay in one corner and try to be silent and try to be safe. People will still have impressions of you. Therefore, which one do you choose? To act on it, or to act on it to make sure that the impressions will come out positive, or you don't do something about it, and whether you like it or not, it will come out negative, right? So gawan lang natin ang paraan, ha? So it appears that simply being expressive, especially showing positive emotions like joy and happiness through a smile, can make a good first impression. Sa simula pa lang. Hi, good morning, students. Today is our first day of classes for school year 2020 and 2021. So I would like us to know each other, and I have certain guidelines for us to follow in getting to know each other. I have prepared some questions that you need to answer individually, but remember, I will have to call you by name, and once I call you, you will be using the guide questions to introduce yourselves and tell something about yourself and your expectations of me to the whole class and to the subject and of the subject. Mga ganun ba? Nakakita din na today. So again, remember, there is no such thing as a boring subject or a subject that I do not like. It's always associated to the behavior of the teacher. So these emotions can be expressed through body orientation, posture, magkaiba po kasi nakaganito, sa nakaganyan, and eye contact. Again, I'm still adjusting to establishing eye contact. So importante daw na nakatingin tayo sa camera o hindi naman palagi kasi nga minsan may binabasa ka sa PowerPoint presentation mo, but try to establish eye contact via the camera of your laptop or your cell phone or whatever gadget you're using, so that you establish an eye contact, an illusion of an eye contact with your students, making them feel that, you know, you're looking at them. So parang andun ka palagi. And of course, eyebrows. Hindi nyo alam na talagang inayos ko to, talagang ganyan pang eyebrow. Kasi pag medyo nagdidikit yan, ang tingin ng mga tao sa atin ay mean. Or pag hindi maayos ang kilay po natin. Kaya nga po, the beauty of trying to yung pag-aayos ng mga kilay, nung una wala akong pakialam doon at ang tingin ko doon ay kaartihan lang. Pero habang tumatagal, sa profession ko, maraming nagko-komento sa akin, Sir, pag malapitan ka na pala, parang pag malapitan ka, mabait ka pala tingnan, pero pag sa malayo hindi. Kasi pag sa malayo pala, at dahil hindi ako napupulbo, may itim ako eh. So pag sa malayo, lahat nagdidikit. So sabi niya, Sir, pag sa malayo, parang we thought that you are a mean person, tapos parang galit ka, parang suplado ka. Pero pag lumalapit ka, kasi nga habang lumalapit, nakikita mo yung spaces in between the eyebrows and the contours and so on and so forth. So, importante pala na kahit lalaki po kayo, especially for online, mayroon kayong lighting, alam nyo po yung angles ninyo, and then do some contours in your eyes para mawala pa. Kung may eye bags po ako, pero nalagyan ko po yan po ng pulbo para para mawala. Tapos, talagang nagpatanggal ako dito ng kasi nga nagmumukha akong mean at masamang tao pag may mga ganung dikit-dikit at inayos ang kilay. My point here, ladies and gentlemen, is that in our discussion answering the first question, second question, one of the major contribution to making impressions of another person would be physical attributes. And whether we like it or not, our students are human beings, and we need to somehow present ourselves physically appealing to them as well. All right. So body orientation, posture, eye contact, tone of voice is very important. Not too high, not too low, pero modulated lang. But naririnig ko yung mga emotions. Not monotonous na. So it appears that simply being expressive, dapat hindi monotonous. So it appears that simply expressive. Kasi nga, online na nga siya, boring pa pakinggan, hindi wala na. O di, boring na nga si teacher, boring pang subject. Mouth positions, nose barking like, okay? Tapos meron pa ako nakikita ng teacher na nagaganon pa, tapos nangungulangon. Sabi ko, si teacher hindi aware na live siya palagi. Alright? So, baka instead na ang tingin ang attention ng bata ay nasa pakikinig kay teacher, na wala na kasi si teacher nangungulangot, nanggakamot na, nagaganon na. So, let us try to be more conscious of the things that we do while we're doing online, especially if it's recorded. Okay, mouth position is very important, and eyebrow shape. Okay. So first suggestion that I can do is dress appropriately. In face-to-face, I usually wear long sleeves or barong or a coat. Pero kasi nakikita lang po ng mga estudyante natin ay pangtaas. I know that in the private schools, you have your uniform, and for the public school, you have your uniform. Pero nga, kung makikita niyo yung mga uniform na yan, talagang palaga may color. One of the most professional looking dress wear would be clothes with color. Okay? Pag hindi daw po naka-color, tas naka V-neck lang or naka yung round neck po, yan po ay para sa mga, ang impression na lumalabas sa mga tao ay too casual. Alright? Too casual. Alright? So, people judge others based on their appearances. We don't have to like this fact to know what it's true, to know that it's true. Kids are people, and they are especially harsh and honest critics. And whether you like it or not, the younger, the more superficial they are with their impressions on people's looks. Okay? Itsura. Okay? So let us try to, swerte na po tayo safe na po tayo na mag-uniform po tayo. Okay? Pero kung araw naman na taon sa araw na yung live online lecture or discussion po natin ay hindi tayo naka-uniform, then again, sabi ko po, naka-collar. Pwede pong polo shirt, pwede pong long sleeves, parang init-init ng long sleeves, pero hindi naman kasi kita masyado, kaya okay lang ito ditong part na to. So basta may collar po. Okay? Project confidence and authority. Okay? Not authoritative, just projecting confidence and authority. Okay? The explanation is that confidence and authority come from experience, but lacking that, fake. So parang first time mo mag-online, fake it if you must. The first time I did my webinar, as I was not too confident, I feel inadequate in my skills in doing webinars. And some of my mediators told me, Sir, kaya niya, nagagawa niya sa face-to-face. It's just, changing the modalities. And it's easy for you to say. Pero iba kasi ang nasa face-to-face. Difficult to talk when you're not your face-to-face with your students. But you get the hang of it. What I did is, tama po, ito yung ginawa ko sa sarili ko. I just fake it. I projected as if I've been doing it for the past years. Okay? And the confidence and the faking of my confidence and my authority of doing webinars came from the idea that I prepared for it. Okay, preparation will give you confidence, and confidence lends you authority. So over prepare. So kagaya ng ginagawa ko, alam nila ng Vibal yan, ang Vibal team, I always prepare a PowerPoint presentation. Dalawa po yan. I have a concept paper, meron pa akong flow ng paper. Tapos I transform my concept paper to PowerPoint presentation, and the PowerPoint presentations ang umaabot minsan ng 70 slides. And then I'll sleep over it. The next day I have a more clear idea how we'll present the presentation. Then that's when I edit. The point there is that you will see my presentation as if parang ang diling ginawa, but it went through a lot of editing, a lot of thoughts and time and effort. And hindi natin kailangan sabihin sa mga bata, pinaghirapan ko to. But that's our job, to make something difficult easy for our students to perceive. Hindi natin kailangan iparamdam sa mga bata na pinagpapagurang ko to and so on and so forth. No. Let your confidence, let our confidence and our authority show through the camera that because we are prepared, we've done our best to do this task, to do these materials for them, then it will come out, we will come out confident, and definitely it will project, our personality will project to our students that we are the authority as far as, teaching and learning online is concerned. Okay, third suggestion that I can give you is eloquently communicate your thoughts and ideas. I do practice. Before I present my ideas here, I present it to myself, and my moderators, Michelle and Jillian, they would give me 10 to 15 minutes to practice my slides, just for me to organize my thoughts one last time. The point here, ladies and gentlemen, is that If you prepared your materials and yet you did not practice how you're gonna do, magkaiba kasi ang sinusulat sa ginagawang slide sa sinasabi. Magkaiba yun. Minsan nangyari dahil hindi mo practice ang sinasabi mo, pinabasa mo na lang ang nakalagay sa PowerPoint slides mo or what's written on your slides. The point here is that by practicing with someone, ako usually sa camera, looking at myself at the camera, at first I felt so stupid, pero this is a new platform for all of us and we need to practice. It's like a stage. I believe that all teachers are actors, and like any actor for that matter, we need to practice our acts and put our acts together so it will come out to our students cohesively and coherently. So my suggestion to you out there, people, is look into the camera often to establish eye contact and speak with calculated speed and modulated but animated voice. That's why every now and then I control myself, because when I get so emotional with the things that I explain, I speak so fast. But in an online teaching, we need to know that our students may not be able to understand us in the regular speed that we have during face-to-face interaction. So if it's an online, we need to calculate our speed and try to enunciate the words so that it would come out clear to our students. And one way or the other, we minimize misunderstandings and possible breakdown of understanding between our students and the teachers. The fourth and last suggestion that I can give is share your learning concerns. I wanted to dehumanize myself in front of the viewers. That's why every now and then I have this, behavioral manifestations, like I would do this, like I'm not really sure. I tell you, I share my innermost thoughts about the topic. Huwag naman innermost thoughts and concerns mo tungkol sa pamilya mo, sa love life mo. Innermost concerns about the topic and about the situation. Halimbawa na, like sharing your concerns about, this is a new frontier for all of us, learning through online platforms and through modular, and I hope I'm still coping with the changes, and I know you are too. So I hope that together, if you have concerns, do not hesitate to tell me so that we can work out these things, and if we can resolve it, if we can resolve it right away, then we can do something about it. But if we cannot resolve it, because it entails a lot of planning, so we need to sit down and talk about it, and I have to present it to yung mga ganong sitwasyon daw, I dehumanizes our teachers to the eyes of our students, and mas mahirap kasi na kung magpo-project tayo sa mga bata na we are all too perfect and all too knowing, at pag nagkamali po tayo, it's a difficult way down sa pedestal po natin, kasi nilagay natin ang sarili natin sa pedestal. Try to share with our students our concerns, because what's happening right now with the changes of the teacher and student interaction is not just new to the teachers, but also new to both students and the parents. And by sharing your concerns and enjoining them to think about how we can resolve such concerns would be making a more collaborative, a more positive way of dealing with changes in the teaching and learning atmosphere. All right, with that, I think we are now ready for our takeaway for the third question. Takeaway po, dalawa lang po. Impress on your students that you are talking for their benefit, not just for yourself. Let them know that you are doing this not because it is part of your job as a teacher, but because you have a genuine love and concern for their well-being and for their learning. Pag naramdaman ng mga bata nila you have concern, they will be cooperative and they will love you no matter what you do. Believe me, nangyari na po yun. Alam na mga estudyante na mahal ko sila, talagang gusto ko sila maging the best. And they know, because they know that, they do something about it. And when we become partners in their journey to become educated and learned and intellectuals. All right. Second and last takeaway for our third question would be, the best way to make a great first impression is by being confident, and I mentioned is that we will We will not, the negative impressions from our students would be because we did not prepare thoroughly for the first day in the first week. And if we jumpstart the school year with a good impression and prepared presentation, that will be our springboard to the same thing, or even better ourselves in the preceding weeks and preceding months, thereby helping our students focus more on their learning while they're at home. On that note, I'm now ready to answer questions and willing to clarify some vague concepts that you think I wasn't able to explain thoroughly. Okay, so Jillian, do we have questions out there?
Thank you very much, Brother Roderick. Now we will proceed to the question and answer portion. Our first question is from Christina Cortez. Which image or vibe do you think is most effective? Do teachers need to come off as strict and terror?
Um, if it's face-to-face interaction, USA came up with, they did a survey of the type of instructional leadership for a face-to-face interaction of teachers and students. USA came up. I was one of the resource persons of doing the research for the Southeast Asia, and I was for the Philippines. And we came up with the results of the research showed that the teachers for a face-to-face interaction can have a two-way direction. They can start strict and become nice along the way, or they become nice but become strict along the way. So ibig sabihin, nag-improve. So pwede kang nice ka muna pero naging strict ka along the way para mga bata gradual ang adjustment to the behavior and attitude of the teacher and to the demands of the subject. And pwede namang stricto ka for routines of the school. Pero po, that is for the cases of face-to-face classroom interaction between teachers and students. But for the face-to-face interaction, research showed that it's more effective for our students' impression of teachers and to jumpstart the school year by being positive. Kaya nga po nakalagay po dito positive impression kasi nga hindi tayo nakikita ng mga bata. If we start with being strict, galit agad. Hindi ako papayag na late kayo palagi ha. Pwede naman kasing you give the rules, you are being strict but you are still being positive at the same time. And please, at our rules would be, so smile ka pa rin pero sinasabi mo ang rules. I will be strictly following the rules. You should too. That when I say that we're supposed to be online on every Thursday at 9 o'clock, I will be waiting. I will be 15 minutes ahead of you. So I will be online already at 8:45, be waiting for you. But at exactly 9 o'clock, I expect all of you to be online. Now, if you have problems with your connection, please inform me in advance so that we can do something about that. All right? So, pwede po tayo magbigay ng maraming rules and regulations, very strict, stringent learning rules. Kasi nasa bahay po sila, but we cannot be mean. Let us not be mean. Kasi ang mga bata nasa bahay, pag hindi na lang tayo nagustuhan, nainis na sila sa atin, they can always do something not to listen to you. Kasi hindi natin na-control. Pero kung face-to-face kasi, we can do something about misbehaviors. Okay? So my answer to your question would be, since it's online and distance education, let us put on a positive behavior, positive countenance to our students, but it doesn't mean that we cannot be strict with the rules and regulations and the guidelines for our online interaction with our students and even for the independent modular learning of our students at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, brother. Our next question is from Cynthia Formoso. Paano
Nice.
po kung ang teacher niya ay from the student's previous grade tapos hindi naging maganda ang impression ng bata sa teacher na yon? Paano po mababago ng teacher ang impression ng bata sa kanya?
Well, yeah, that there will be situations like that na sabi ng mga bata, siya na naman, last year nga, siya nga, hindi nga namin siya gusto, wala nga kami natutunan sa kanya. Well, the first question is, as a teacher, alam mo ba ang impression ng estudyante mo na to last year about what you did? Now, if you're aware, Do you think it's high time for this school year to do something about it? Ang minsan kasi ang tingin ng mga teacher na sinasabi nila na bad impression, sasabi niya, pakialam ko sa impression ng mga estudyante. Teacher nila ako. Sila ang mag-a-adjust sa akin at ako hindi mag-remember. It's a teaching and learning process. If our students detest the teachers, then our students are not inspired to learn. But if our teachers do something about adjusting also, hindi ko sinasabi na hindi mag-a-adjust ang bata. So yes, they will have to adjust to the demands of the teacher for the academic demands and requirements of the subject. But the teacher must also adjust to the students. Meet them halfway. Hindi pwedeng ikaw lang. So my answer is, we need to be aware as a teacher na tayo din ang teacher ngayong year na to at masama ang impression sa atin ng mga estudyante last year. Then the first thing is I need to analyze why my students had a bad impression and told me or told the other teachers that they did not learn anything from me. What do I need to improve on in myself? So I think reflection of what went wrong last year would be best first to do something so that we can adjust and do something about it. And then this year is another chance for us to change that. But if we are not aware of these comments and these impressions of our students, of our previous students, and then there are now our students for this school year, still the same students, then we cannot change. I think it's more of a conscious effort and a conscious decision that I will do something about it this year, that I will change it. I will make them feel that I am the best teacher they could ever have. Let that be a challenge to you. Thank you very
Thank you for that, brother. And our last question is from Virginia Cordelia Amanon. What
Yes.
if during the the question is from Maris Roque Maquinano.
Marie.
I plan to involve parents and household in some lessons in edukasyon sa pagkakatao. What are
Nice.
my limitations?
Well, if you involve your parents, your limitations will be not knowing if they're actually doing it. So it is very important. That will be your limitations. You do not know if the things that you agreed on that they would do, that they promised that they will do at home, they will actually do. So that would be the greatest limitation, knowing whether they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. All right. You can only control yourself. So what I can do here is, what I can suggest is come up with a monitoring system, a regular monitoring system for you to communicate with both parents and students to know if they are actually doing it. But do not impress on them na, ma'am, ginagawa niyo ba talaga? Sure po yun, promise na. Do not impress so much on them na do not pressure them na to make them feel na ang nararamdaman nila ay wala pala itong tiwala sa akin eh. Di, huwag na tayo mag-usap. Ikaw na lang gumawa lahat. Yung regular pero hindi yung naka-pressure. So wag naman palaging once a week. Siguro regularly sabihin niyo po, ma'am, let's agree on a day po na pwede po ako mag-monitor. Huwag niyo pong ikaw mag-pressure, ma'am, pwede po ba mag-report po kayo sa akin every night before you go to sleep para malaman ko po kung ginagawa niyo. Huwag naman ganun. I think one thing that you should do first is to control yourself. Kasi minsan yung mga doubts natin, tayo po ang hindi yung dahil alam natin, hindi natin alam na ginagawa yon. The fear of the unknown. It makes us anxious. Ginagawa ba nila ang dapat nila ginagawa? Let go. Give trust. And then later on when you know na hindi nila ginagawa, then cross the bridge. Doon mo gawa ng paraan na hindi nila ginagawa. But you have to initially trust them. And tell them that you will be trusting them and you will be building on the trust, that partnership. And then pag magkaroon po kung nakita natin na hindi nila nagagawa, huwag mong i-impose sa kanila na hindi nyo po ginagawa. Sabihin nyo po, ma'am, what could be some of the possible reasons kung bakit hindi po na obstacles po sa mga activities na naplanuhan po natin. So when we ask them to address some of the things that they were not able to accomplish at home based on the agreed plan, try to still be collaborative and then try to be consensus of some suggestions from the parents and galing pa rin sa kanila. Bakit po? Sila pong nakakaalam na kanilang sitwasyon at hindi po natin alam ang sitwasyon nila. Probably the initial agreement and conditions that you agreed on, hindi pa alam ng mga magulang at ng mga ng mga bata kasi nga it's still a tryout. Hindi pa nila alam it will work or will not work. There will be other conditions that would intervene or be barriers to the accomplishment of the agreed on conditions. Hindi pa nila alam kasi nga syempre may mga regular schedules sila. Probably there would be also conditions like parents during the time that you had that condition are still working at home. Then all of a sudden then na-lift na po ang quarantine, kailangan na silang pumasok. So there are some conditions that may not be for the long term, and we just have to play it by as the days and the weeks progress on. So wag naman tayo masyadong strict. We're all testing waters with this new platform of teaching and learning. Thank you very much. That's the honest answer I can give you.
That's all the questions we have for now. Any last reminders to our viewers for today, brother?
Definitely. All right. So here's our conclusion, and we are going to title loose ends and providing challenges for you guys. So based on the science of first impression, I would like us to be reminded to summarize everything that we discussed. Here are some tips to putting your best foot forward to your students. Keep your facial expressions soft and warm, but does not necessarily mean just because you are soft and warm and positive doesn't mean you cannot be strict with the rules and regulations of the rules and regulations that you set up for the distance learning and for online learning. Next, smile and relax your facial muscles. Okay, chill din pag may time tayo. Okay, it's a new platform for us, so let's take it on positively. Next, don't squint your eyebrows to avoid looking angry. So, huwag kang gagano na, minsan pag na-explain na tayo, gumagano tayo na, hindi natin alam na ano lang tayo, talagang emotional lang tayo, very connected lang tayo sa topic, pero it comes out to your students na, galit na naman si sir, kung ano naman iniisip niyan. So, kahit animated na tayo, so be conscious that you need to smile. Right? Keep your body posture relaxed and upright. Ako po, nakikita niyo itong part na to, pero yung kamay ko may magalaw kasi nga siguro kilala ko ng mga estudyante ko at mga other teachers na nakita na ako face to face naman. I'm more eloquent with my hands. I speak with my hands. Okay? So ganun din po ako sa pagganito, marami akong kamay na ginagamit. So keep my body posture relaxed. So my hands somehow make me project that I'm into what I'm saying and I'm relaxed. Okay? Next, maintain eye contact, consciously looking at the camera every now and then so that you establish like as if you are there in front of your students. And then wear clean, appropriate, properly fitting clothes. Pero syempre yung pangtaas lang, bahala ka na sa pangbabaha. Hindi naman makikita ng mga estudyante mo yan. Pero kung gusto mong fully geared ka, nakasapatos ka pa, fine, but that's your call. Okay? Next would be make sure your hair, hands and body are washed and well kept, not for the sake of your students. Kasi pag nag-online ka po na fresh ang pakiramdam mo, nakaligo ka, nakapag-toothbrush ka, malinis ang kanin mo, you feel light. Okay? I have experienced that. Nagawa ko na po na nag-talk ako sa umaga, pagdating sa hapon, hindi na ako naligo. Parang I feel like I'm not comfortable. So what I did is every time I will go online, I still take a bath. I always take a bath. Sabi nga naman kasamahan ko dito sa bahay, pag 3 beses ka mag-online, 3 beses ka naliligo, because that's for me to make me feel refreshed, fresh, and light so that I come out light and relaxed. Next, speak in a clear and warm voice. You wouldn't know if you speak well and you have a good voice. That's why every now and then I keep asking, do you hear? Do you understand what I'm saying? Or if my mediators would not give me feedback as to whether I'm so fast with my explanation, I try to go back to the recording of my webinars and try to analyze my own speed and how I present my ideas. So kailangan po natin i-analyze din ang sarili natin. But before that, nagre-record ako ng sarili ko, tapos tinitingnan ko, I have to do something about this. Yung mali yung aking angulo ng ganyan. So you need to know where your angle is. All right? So, when meeting a new people like your new students, either face-to-face or online, those first few seconds and minutes really do matter. So it's worth thinking about how you might make a good first impression. So go back to my suggestions, how you can make a good impression on your students, and continue to positively impress on your students as the school year progresses. I do not believe that you just, make effort on your first week, your first impression on the first day and the first week, and then that's it. No, it is a continuous and a journey and a process that we need to continue on until the end of the school year or until our students have graduated from our school. All right. So let us just read. This is from Arturo. I really love his writing about impressions and our perceptions of the world. So Arturo Perez Reverte. All right. Let's just read together. You read this on your end. The world is not as simple as we like to make it out to be. The outlines are often vague, and it's the details that count. Nothing is really truly black or white, and bad can be a disguise for good or beauty, and vice versa, without one necessarily excluding the other. Questions? Someone can both love and betray the object of its love without diminishing the reality of true feelings and value. Perception. Life, whether we like to admit it or not, is an uncertain adventure in a diffuse landscape whose borders are constantly shifting, where all frontiers are artificial because of different ideas and concepts from one culture to another. Therefore, unique is basically artificial in its inevitable obsolescence, where at any moment everything can either end only to begin again, or finish suddenly forever, like an expected blow from an ex. So ito yung sinasabi kanina ni Ma'am na, paano kung masamang impression ko last time, ang impression ng mga bata sa akin last time? So you can begin again. Or, this is your first time with your new students, first time mo, your impression did not do well, it could end right there and then. Where the only absolute, coherent, indisputable, and definitive reality is death. We have such little time when you look at life, a tiny lightning flash between two eternal nights, the now and your death. In between is uncertain. Everything has to do with everything else. Life is a succession of events that link with each other, whether we want them to or not. I would like to end my session with the idea here that what's constant in this world is the definitive idea of death. But as we journey in life, we will be faced with uncertainties, different impressions, different perceptions. And what we can do is rise above these negative perceptions and do something about it and become positive people and do something about our own individual biases and individual perceptions that limit our interaction with other people. With that, thank you very much. And I had a huge opportunity of sharing my ideas again on making my positive impressions on our students. I hope to see you once more tomorrow with my session. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
There we have it. On behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, I would like to thank our speaker for today for this very insightful, eye-opening, and generous learning session. It is an honor to have you with us today, brother. And to all our Kavibal viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. Muli, maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating lahat.